Hello, my name is Cheryl Wilson, and glad to be back doing some videos. And this video is, I'm going to be painting this painting, and I'm going to be showing you another painting. But what I'm going to be going over in this video is using, making marks, because I love to make marks. That's how I start a lot of my paintings. Making marks with different tools like graphite, pencil, charcoal, pastels, oil, and regular pastels. And then I wanted to show you how I add something on top of it if you want to fix some of those lines into your painting where you don't want them to smear. I love them smearing. That's part of what my art process is, but there are some times I want to do sgraffito or lines, and even though a lot of it gets covered up, I want them to stay without smearing. So I show you several techniques that I use to keep them from smearing, and then in the demo I even use a palette knife that reduces some of the smearing. So I learned something while I was doing this, because I used a couple things that I don't normally use. I use a fixative, I use some clear gesso, and some mediums. So without further ado, here's the other painting that, this is when I have a little more time to finish the painting. The first one was done for the video, and it was done quicker. And while it's pretty, I may add a little bit more of my personal markings to it. But I wanted to show you both of them, and in the end I show them to you again. So I hope this is of use. I appreciate the wonderful comments I got from a lot of you. I was away for a little while. I had a little health issue that I had to deal with, but I feel much better now, and I appreciate the wonderful comments I made. And I even wondered if I should continue doing videos, but I thought if I'm getting notes from people saying they really enjoyed my videos and they meant something to them because they're learning from them, then I needed to keep working on them and putting them out for you. So let me know if there's anything else you want to see. And as always, I hope this is helpful to you. And thank you for watching. Subscribe and give me a thumbs up. All right, I am going to be doing a demo here of using different utensils that I make marks on my art with, and I'm going to be sealing them in with 4 different products for this particular demo. I know how they react without them sealing in, and I know how they act with a fixative. But I wanted to try these different ones in front of you so you could get an idea of what you may have in your art stash and what you may want to use to make your art a little bit different. I have pencil, I have an ink pencil, I have wax crayon, I have 2 different types of pastels, I have an oil stick, I have charcoal, and I have graphite. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a fixative on part, a clear gesso on some, acrylic glazing, and a fluid matte medium, and you can use a gloss medium, whatever, but I like matte. So without further ado, let's get started and see how these things react. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a mark with the utensil in the block. It corresponds. This is a pencil. This is a Derwent Inktense. These are beautiful, especially when they're wet. So I'm just going to make a mark going down here, and we're going to see what happens with that. This is a Woody Stabilo. It's a wax crayon. And again, if you dip this in water, it has a little different, but that's not what this demo is for. This is an actual oil pastel. I love putting black marks in my artwork. This is why I'm doing this. This is an actual oil stick. It's very rich and juicy. And this actually, they say, and it has in my art, it will dry a lot quicker than like a regular oil pastel. This is an oil stick. It's a little bit different. This is a regular pastel black. And this is a water-soluble graphite. Now the graphite comes in soluble and water-soluble. This is water-soluble. And a piece of charcoal. This is a willow, very thin piece. So we're going to put these to the side so we don't accidentally get them mixed up. And I'm just going to start with, do some water across so you can see what happens. It comes in contact with water. How it smears. Get my brush out. And you can see what it does when it mixes with water. I'm going to do the Fixative last because I have to do this outside. But if I were to use some clear gesso, see how this, now the gesso, what it should do, there's a little smearing when you put it down, but it should protect. So when I go back over it with some paint or some or water, it will protect it. Because there's times that you're going to want in your art it to stay stable. Okay. So that is the clear gesso. Now, you know, there's gesso that comes in different colors. There's gesso that comes in white, gray, black, different colors. Now, this is the second one we're going to do is a glazing liquid. A lot of people like to use glazing liquids. They like to mix their actual paints with the glazing liquid. Okay, we're going to do this right here. Just going to do one little swipe. Some of the paint comes unstable. Some of the marks become unstable a little bit. Squirt a little bit more out. Oops. This is glossy. Okay. And I'm assuming, based on what I've done in the past, that the last two, other than the Fixative, will react about the same. In fact, they all three should. Okay. Okay. Here's the pencil. Here's the Inktense. Just put a little bit more on here. Here's the Woody. Here's the oil pastel. RF oil stick. Use the regular black pastel, the art graph, and the charcoal. Okay, so again, I'm going to do water on part. And I'm going to do the fixative, but I'm going to go outside when this dries and spray the fixative and come back in. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I dried this, and so this is the gesso, and then there's the glazing, the glossy glazing, and then there's the matte. And I'm assuming that they're all going to do the same thing. So I'm going to put one more water on the gesso. Of course, it didn't make that much of a difference for the pencil because it didn't to begin with. They didn't run very much to begin with. Okay, so let's do the woody. And so it stayed. So in the oil pastel. So basically the clear gesso cemented in the color. So if you wanted to have some where it ran and some where it didn't, same way with the pastel. The clear gesso. I don't see it moving. Okay, so let's go down to the glazing and the matte medium. And I'm going to do them together. Nothing is moving there. The Inktense, nothing's moving there. So this is what I thought. It cemented it in, basically, I guess you could call it. So you could put as much color, as much water on these, and they're not going to do anything. Pretty much secure in their own right. And here is where I did it, where it's smeared, and then down at the bottom here is, let me get my brush clean from the oil, is where I put the fixative on. Now there's a little bit of bleeding there. So sometimes you are going to have to use, even though this is a fixative for pastels and oil pastels, you may have to do a couple layers. And there's the oil pastel, and it pretty much kept it from bleeding. There's a pastel. And the graphite, which really bleeds when you put water on it, it worked really well on. And then the charcoal, it just repelled the water. So the fixative also works, except for on the woody. So for this one, the Woody Stabilo Wax Crayon, even though it didn't smear, it did get, it wasn't 100%. So what you may have to do, if you use the fixative, the spray fixative, you may have to use several coats, which I've been told that is an option, to use several coats. So all in all, you're going to want to try, because you can see the big difference between the using a product and not using a product. So I hope this was helpful to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint. It's going to be very loose. I'm going to do a painting of a abstract painting, and I'm going to use some of the techniques where I'm going to use some clear gesso. I'm going to use some matte medium. So I'm going to use the matte medium or the clear gesso, matte medium instead of the glazing because they reacted about the same. Get this lid on so I can show you. And on some of the places, I'm going to use the Fixative. And I'm going to paint the painting so you can actually see a demo of how, excuse me, it might look with the actual Fixatives on top of it, and how some will smear, some won't. So I'm going to start with, I always start with I do a lot of marks on my paper. And that's a pencil. This is the art Graph. Here's a Pastel. And then this is the oil stick. Very much of a, and that will eventually dry because it is an oil stick. Alright, so we learned that it will smear if you put water on it. So of course, some of this I want to smear because I like the smear. I like the gray look on the paper. Some of it won't, some of it will. Now when I get into the groove of doing a painting, I get focused. So I'm going to try to remember to keep talking while I'm painting so that I can explain the demo. I'm just having fun adding paint. Okay, so now I got to make sure that I have some of the, let me just do some of the marks here. Say I want some of that sgraffito to stay there. I'm going to show you, this is the matte medium with the palette knife this time, because I did with the brush before. Palette knife, if you're a little softer, put that on there. And then I'm going to go outside real quick and spray the other part with a fixative. I'll be back. I'm going to pop in here and do a real quick little voiceover, and I did get into my zone, my painting zone, and I did forget to talk, so which happens. So I wanted just to explain that this painting, although it was done quickly for the demonstration, and some of the marks did get covered over. A lot of the marks got covered over. I mean, that's how I work. But you'll see that some of them did show through in the end painting. So I sped this up so that you could see it without it being such a boring ending. And you already saw the introduction what the painting looked like in the end. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something. I hope you try the different techniques on here, and show me what you think your finished painting, if you want, over in the Facebook page that I have to share if you want. But this was fun, and again, it was a fast painting, and it's shows one of the styles that I do, which is on paper, which is very wet paint, a lot of high flows, a lot of spray waters, and an awful lot of white. So I hope you enjoyed this, and hope to see you in the next video. Leave me a note how you, if you enjoyed this, and let me just end here.